On the Policy Triangle today, we talk about future-proofing Europe's chemical testing, why that's good for industry, why it needs flexibility, and why it needs to happen now. So to kick off today, we're going to start with a 60-second snapshot from each of our speakers today, each of our panelists. Let's start with you, Jay. Sure.
Thanks so much, Brian. We are at a really substantial and important moment in time right now. The REACH regulation has been in force for nearly 2 decades, and this is the first time that we are seeing it opened up and ready for revision. So it's a crucial time for Europe. It's a crucial time for chemicals safety, not just in Europe, but globally. People see Europe as a real leading light in the regulatory sphere. We also see it as a real turning point for science. Science has developed so much over the last 2 decades, and we really need to make sure that we make the most of it. And also seeing as this is really the first time in 2 decades that this level of reform is being enabled, what we do now, we need to make sure we're happy with for the next 2 decades. We can't just put in place short-term fixes. We have to really be thinking long-term. To me, it really represents a point in time where we can start making more pragmatic decisions. The science that we have available to us, the non-animal methods of safety assessment, will enable us to make more pragmatic decisions, faster and better regulatory decisions. And I really feel that this is an opportunity for us to start leveraging more non-animal methods, start applying better science, and really enhancing the level of protection for humans and the environment in Europe.
Thank you, Jay. Katja.
Thank you indeed, also providing me the opportunity, and thank you, Jay, already for setting a very interesting scene. I mean, I would say I can definitely agree on a lot, because I'm seeing firsthand that as industry there is this willingness to innovate, but we need to make sure that the regulatory science, the regulatory frameworks are also there, fitting to the science development. And I think it's indeed where we see also the Commission roadmap certainly as a momentum now to make sure that we are all working together to make that happen, and certainly for phasing out animal testing. But I would say, well, whether this is a chance, let's take the chance. But for me, it's also about what are the success criteria. For me, success will very much depend on our ability to collaborate on all these things, our ability to make a joint description of what are the problems that are ahead of us, what are the issues, what are the hurdles, how we can really co-design then also together the solution around it. And definitely in that respect, I see the validation of the test method as one of the key topics that is emerging here, that we will need really to make sure that this is practical and future ready. So let's not miss this opportunity, and also not forget the global dimension about it.
Thank you, Katja. Bas?
Yeah, I can really agree what has been already said. I mean, we really have now the momentum to, I think, do the safety assessment in a different way. For us, we have been in the Netherlands already working on the collaboration that is needed for really transitioning to animal-free innovation, where we work together with all different kinds of stakeholders, with industry, with regulators, with academia, and government, to really bring the whole knowledge development together. And I think here in Europe we are very innovative. We work a lot on these methods. We have very innovative companies, but we see that they struggle with scaling up this technology. And I think we have already the building blocks available in Europe to do it differently. As said, there's already momentum. There's this roadmap from the Commission. We see a lot of big companies already working on NAMs, but we now need to bring it together. We really need to have some sort of coordination to agree on what are the regulatory needs and what kind of methods do we need for it. We have the building blocks, but make it clear to companies what they need to develop, and also stimulate it from the government, and stimulate also like the public-private partnerships that and create new economies in this. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. Jay, just in terms of state of play, what's on the table at the moment? Walk us through what happens over the next few months, next few years in terms of changes.
Sure. So at the moment, there are two simultaneous activities that are going on. We have the revision of the REACH legislative text, which is going through the ordinary parliamentary procedure, and we have a revision of the REACH annexes, which is really where all of the specific information requirements are detailed, and registrants really know the nuts and bolts of what it is they have to provide in terms of information and data. The annexes, that's going through comitology, with no public consultation. So although these two are very much linked, they are taking two very different roads to get there. Yeah.
Katja, how do you see these roads diverging, and where can they be unified?
Diverging, I think it's fair to say you need to differentiate the different regulatory environment. That means the different sets of and pieces of legislation that are out there. I would say, and I think we probably all agree, that REACH is probably the most challenging one when it comes to the uptake of new approaches.
Why so?
It's a very rigid system, and there are reasons for that, but it's fair to say also that when as a registrant, you try to waive the current animal testing that are the norm, it's more than the norm, it's also legally binding to a certain extent, and there are a lot of reasons that makes actually that your waiver proposal are not accepted. Of course, there are still there are some gaps, let's say, for the more complex endpoint where the science still needs to be developed, but even those areas where we could already use the current science, it's remained challenging within REACH. It's really, well, we all know we call it a tick box.
So do you think the science has outgrown the legislation? The science has gone beyond the legislation now?
Well, I think we need to reconcile both. We need definitely to make sure that we are able to modernize also the regulatory framework, and that we change the paradigm, because we need to admit that there is a kind of limit to what we have done now with the current system. It has served certainly the purpose, but if we want to do make sure that we are modernizing in terms of safety assessment, make sure that we can.
And that means being more competitive as well, right?
Oh, certainly. Well, that's the hope always.
Baz, from your perspective, how do you see this?
Well, I wanted to follow up on the point you made about the rigid system of REACH. It is very rigid, but I also think there is already room for new methods, but we should make sure that we create the incentives where this room that is already there is utilized. And because validation is for us like the key thing now. We have a lot of, the last decades, a lot of innovation happened, and in academic settings, also us as governments, we funded academic projects which led to a very broad range of methods, but now we need to consolidate a bit and try to make sure, and also to increase competitiveness of yours, to make sure that those methods that we need and that address those regulatory needs are scaled up, and that businesses like CROs can also create businesses around this validation, so we really get acceptance of these methods. Yeah.
Okay, this isn't a zero-sum game where one side wins and the regulation's all on one side, or the business is all on the other. The collaboration to identify the gaps here has got to be part of the game. Jay, how do you see this collaboration working, and is there goodwill to make this done, or are there strong headwinds from both sides?
I think there is a lot of goodwill, really, and actually I really appreciate Katja saying at the top how important collaboration is, and it's critical to make sure that we are successful in what we need to do. There's been so much great technology and great science that has come out of industry, and industry has really been pushing and leading the way in a lot of really excellent technological advancements. And on the regulator side, there's a huge amount of upskilling that is going on, and we're seeing increasing willingness to adopt these methods and to really understand them. And I think there's been a lot of talk already about validation and trust and confidence, which is so critical to be able to leverage these technologies appropriately. And when you're saying there's no winners, I mean, I think there is, though, because really we want humans in the environment to be the winners here, really. And I think with this better science we can.
Just in terms of scaling, and upskilling, do you think the resources are there with the regulatory side to do this, if not properly, to do it at least quickly?
I think that we probably need to think about how we resource the regulatory community going forward. It's a very different approach. Where the science is leading us to, we've traditionally focused on a very hazard focused classification type approach to regulation. And the science is kind of leading us more towards incorporating exposure data and more towards a holistic risk-based assessment of chemicals. And to do that, we need to really change and adapt. I think the regulators, they have a really tough job in that they have a huge number of chemicals that they need to evaluate. They have to prioritize them and understand them and make pragmatic decisions. And if we need to upskill them on top of that, there does need to be some additional resource. But we have developed educational resources as part of our animal-free safety assessment collaboration. And I know that, a number of other resources are sort of being built and developed all the time. So it's really about making sure we work together to make the most of those opportunities.
If I may want to add, indeed, there's another interesting tool we need to flag. It's this, and as it was mentioned in the roadmap, and I hope that they will develop that even further, it's this concept of regulative safe spaces. So it's these regulative sandboxes where you can test a pilot, where we could imagine to also do mock-up dossiers for REACH. And not only to test the method, but I think also to test how does it fit, or where are actually the challenge and the hurdle when we try to apply that to a system like REACH. Because it's fair to say, you say it allows for the flexibility. We do a fully different experience. And I think this kind of collaborative environment could help each of us better understand the issues of each other, and hopefully then to co-design a solution that are then really working. I would hope, and in terms of the resources, that we work indeed also more together upfront on this identification of what are the issues. And
what does that look like, though? How do you get that done upfront? With the sandboxes or any other tools?
Yes, I would hope that indeed one of the major tools I'm putting a lot of hope in those is indeed these sandboxes. We can start with relatively easy dossiers, so to say, or mock-up dossiers rather, or pilots, and really start with a very clear problem formulation and then see how far we can progress. Because I'm very much convinced that the feedback there, even if we work under, let's say, safe condition, that means more closer session because of confidentiality of data and so on, the general learnings out of that should be made available to a much broader community so that we can all benefit and get things.
So there's got to be a learning curve there, and without that learning curve, we can't move forward.
And that's indeed with the resources. I think we need to put the resources to get this learning curve.
Would you say then that this is more of an iterative process where also the sandboxes are used to adapt the regulatory procedures, to adapt the criteria that are there? Because I think when we talk about validation, it's all about confidence in the methods, right? And I think by creating confidence, it should not be only a top-down approach by the regulators, but it should be a joint effort. Like,
oh, I like to hear that.
I
really love it.
That's my view of creating a sandbox. Like, when do we decide when something is safe? All we want is like confidence in the methods, and they are scalable and they are reproducible, and that in that way we can innovate the regulatory system.
And in terms of the centralization as proposed for the validation process, how do you think that would play out? Do you see the need for centralization?
I do, yeah. Because all over Europe people work on development of new methods. But we need to have some sort of coordination. I mean, we are all different member states and we have our own academic institutions, our own companies, but we need to have some consensus about like these are the regulatory needs.
Is that a difficult thing to achieve right now?
yeah, consensus, creating consensus in Europe is of course also always a process. But I think the discussions that are happening around the roadmap is a really good thing, because it creates momentum. And I think when this roadmap is done, the process is not done, it just starts. It should create this setting where we can have these discussions, not in a top-down approach, but really what do we agree as society is safe and are good methods. Yeah.
Okay, I imagine industry would clearly prefer a centralized approach to this.
Well, there's definitely a preference for a centralized, because it's also not just centralized. We would hope that it's also coordinated across the different sectors, across the different agendas within the Commission and for the member states. So centralized looks already, yes.
But from an investor's perspective as well, if you're an American company, you want to put cash into businesses in Europe, and you still have to deal with all these different dimensions. Mario Draghi is going to tell us centralize quickly, right?
Yeah, exactly, because if you want some clarity and you want to create this environment where businesses thrive, you need clarity, you need a long-term view. And that's why I also think this coordination, as governments, we also want this coordination, because we fund R&D, public funds in R&D, but we want to have, I also told the Commission, provide me with some clarity where I put these funds. And for investors, I think it counts the same. And
so you got to get some kind of future-proofing into that, Jay, as well. So, it's been about 20 years in the making to this point. What do we do for the next 20 years? How do we make this future-proof to some degree, where investors can have confidence that it's not going to change quickly, that regulators can learn and implement well? What do you think is necessary right now to future-proof it, or you just need to fix some things?
That is a really excellent question. I think that we can future-proof things. I think we need a lot more legal certainty for companies, and if we're talking about investors, legal certainty is really quite a critical aspect. I think where this comes from, like Katja was saying, being able to have open discussions in safe spaces like this and start to generate these precedents, start to generate more and more legal certainty in how we can leverage these methods. But really, I do think that we need to think sensibly and pragmatically with this revision to start making REACH more flexible, to start giving regulators more opportunities to think differently, to think more pragmatically, to stop just maybe trying to set a classification and regulate based on that, but actually thinking more about, well, what are the chemicals that we have in front of us? How can we tailor testing approaches so that they're relevant to the chemical, but also relevant to human and environmental exposure?
So flexibility being the key word here.
100%.
Okay, Bas.
Well, yeah, I think we should define flexibility, well, because I also think that industry benefits from clarity, because
we call it predictability.
Yeah. Predictability. Well, if you're developing a product and you are applying for a market authorization, it's a very rigid process. It costs a lot of time, a lot of money. So if things are a bit vague, or in terms of when a compound is safe, then I think that also creates uncertainty for businesses. So I think we should mind that.
That's a really excellent point. And I think we really need to understand those areas that with the current system that aren't providing that level of clarity. We have some really excellent tools within REACH in both the last resort requirement and Annex 11, where it provides opportunities for adaptations to the information requirements. And there's a lot of cases where these adaptations are done and accepted, and it's fine, but there are many more cases where industry actually doesn't have the level of certainty that the scientific adaptations they're proposing are going to be accepted. And I think that is something that we really need to look at and work.
Katja, in terms of future-proofing, science doesn't stand still, innovation doesn't stand still. And the speed of technological change right now is going at double the pace of before. So can we really future-proof is the first question. And secondly, how do you build in sufficient flexibility to ensure that Europe remains competitive within this market with a flexible, future-proof regulation?
For me, it indeed what I would like to see is that the roadmap also provides some clear timings. I mean, it's not just about a declaration of intent, about listing what actions needs to be done. It's also to provide some scaling about the time. I mean, what kind of time frame we look at, because that can really help and give an incentive to everyone to make sure that you are ready and future-proof.
Okay, just a quick question on trust as well. How do you build trust in this process? In terms of the increased flexibility, trust of the consumers as well, trust that this process, as the science evolves, will take cognizance of that too. Just quick answers now. How do you build trust within this collaborative approach? Baz?
Well, I think it all starts with involving all the stakeholders, like not only industry but also NGOs, because as you rightfully said, civilians are really concerned about the safety of their environment, rightly so, because of the things with PFAS and stuff like that. So they should be involved from the beginning. The same accounts for regulators. Make them an intrinsic part of the new developments. So not develop a new method and then when you're done, go to the regulator like, this is my new method, and then the regulator says, yeah, it's not good enough. Okay. So really make this multi-stakeholder collaboration an intrinsic part of your new...
Katja, a quick comment on that?
For me, it's indeed also start to work together, listen to each other, listen to each other's issues and challenges. And overall, I think it's a lot about communication, but not only. And you just mentioned the public. It's indeed, the public needs to be on board also and taken with us. Because for us, it's about the safety of the chemicals we put on the market. We are sure these are safe. So let's discuss. If you have some doubts, I mean, let's discuss and that we are all transparent on what we do actually. And I think we have, starting to work with each other. That's a good start.
Trust me, I'm a scientist. Is that what you want to hear in this, Jay?
That is a dangerous road to go down. But I think one way that we can avoid that, but build confidence and trust, is transparency. It's really important to be open, be transparent, and be able to let the data speak for itself. Science is science, and we need to really remember that. And so we need to try and remove our bias, look at things objectively, and make sure that we're using NAMs equally for ingredient defense, for regulatory purposes, and for furthering more scientific discoveries.
Thank you. We're going to do our 30-second wrap-up now. So let's start with Baz. 30 seconds, your key takeaway for today.
My key takeaway for today is that we need more coordination, bringing like the regulatory needs together with the R&D that is happening, and really embracing the multi-stakeholder collaboration.
Thank you. Katja?
Yeah, very similar for me also. It's not only a learning from today, it's indeed we are in a process since 3 years. For me, it's definitely, if we want to advance the chemical safety without animal testing, it's really about that we need to do that together. We need to move together.
Thank you. Jay?
We have a great opportunity, and we really can't mess it up. We have great science that's available right now that we can use to make very short-term impact in terms of animal testing and in terms of keeping people safer and the environment safer. And we have really great opportunities in the long run with more and more scientific discoveries, being developed as we speak. So let's take this opportunity, be pragmatic, make good decisions, and start to think about how we move forward and be better as a society.
Thank you. Thank you all. So if you don't trust the process, you can at least trust the science. Our animal testing, our chemicals that need to be safe for everything that we use them for, may not have a perfect way to resolve this, but with collaboration, with some patience and with new technology, Europe can certainly have a competitive role to play. But will it pick up the mantle for that? Will we do it quickly enough? That's still the question. Thank you for joining us today.